live, Khaled and I, this time to talk about Professor Jiang's conversation with Sneeko, saying that he would could never become Muslim. I will start playing it, and I hope the audio comes across. There's probably no one to tell us either way, but let's start now.
A Muslim. I have issues with the Islamic faith, okay? My major issue is that, I got a lot of hate for my lecture, okay? But I believe that organized religion, it changed over time. So maybe in the beginning, it had certain ideas, but in order to accommodate empire, in order to accommodate politics, it shifted over time to become much more conformist, but become much more static. And I don't like that. My sympathies are toward connection with God directly, right? So rather have an intermediary telling you what God thinks, well, you should be able to feel God in your heart. Okay? And I mean, like, people have said I'm agnostic, or I'm a Luciferian. I don't know what these terms mean, okay? But I believe that we're all individuals with a divine spark in us. And so we should be all able to connect directly to God. And we should all be able to exercise our imagination, our intuition.
Okay, we talked about...
Hopefully, Khaled, you heard that? Did you?
Yeah, and I was also checking your video from YouTube. The sound's coming through, so that's good.
Oh, excellent, yeah. Because the video does go through that again, and I've made a few notes about what he said and what I found objectionable. So I guess now is the time to discuss that and maybe play a bit more and then finish with that one. Did you have any comment to make on what you've heard so far?
Not yet. Partly because I was just checking the sound, but he was talking about how he's not sure what certain terms mean.
Luciferian and agnosticism. Okay, well, since you didn't hear it properly, I'll just carry on because it does repeat itself. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that would make sense. Right, we'll just carry on then.
About communism and your predictions. So, okay, the one that I watched 2 nights ago about Islamic Empire, the way you talk about Islam it sounds, well, from my perspective, obviously I'm biased, you speak with a different sort of righteousness in your voice, and also you did want to go visit Mecca. And my favorite part of this lecture was you were talking about the weaknesses and the advantages of each faith. And you mentioned in Christianity that the benefit was that it was in a religion of empire, that the Romans use it as power and control, right? But the weakness was that the Trinity didn't make any sense to you. Well, it's to many people, even a lot of Christians, right?
It makes no sense at all. No.
Why does the Trinity not make any sense to you?
Right. Well, because, we think through intuition.
I mean,
right?
that's just so, question,
like,
right?
how do we know something is right?
Okay,
well,
let me
we know something is right
it.
because...
Yeah.
Well, I think even Christians would agree that the Trinity makes no sense. Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, they actually admit it.
Because,
When
exactly.
you back them into a corner, they'll just say, this is what we prefer to believe. It makes no sense. We can't give you a coherent answer, but this is what we have to believe in order to remain Christian. This is what we wish to do because we're Islamophobes. Well, they don't say that out loud, but... and we don't care if we go to hell because, obviously if Islam is correct and Christians are guilty of the unforgivable sin of associating partners with God, with Jews, which Jews call shituf, then Christians are going to hell. And if you point it out to them and they say, we don't care, we just want to keep rejecting Islam because we hate you, and we're prepared to die and go to hell just to show that we hate you. And this is the unspoken message, and I think Professor Jiang is basically repeating it. I mean, there are plenty of Islamophobes in China, and unfortunately money, status, and power is all people understand. So, I'm sure at some stage in China's very long history, somebody thought, well, why don't we become Muslim? And I guess, all the leaders thought, well, we've conquered them and, they're part of our empire. And, why would we adopt the religion of people we have conquered? Surely our system of government and our system of thinking must be superior because we conquered them.
Yeah, I don't know how Islam grew in China because they've got thousands of mosques. So I thought they grew in China. Did they conquer them? Did they conquer the Muslims, or did Islam grow within China?
Well, a bit of both, because in Xinjiang, the Uyghurs are they're not Han Chinese, and they have their own language, and that's why, the Chinese government was, every empire is always nervous when a part of its empire says, we think we might go our own way, we don't want to, be part of your empire anymore, and there's always a bit of a fight about it. But there are the Hui Chinese who are ethnically Han Chinese. It's just that they're Muslim, so they look Chinese, but they have different diet, a different they learn Arabic, but and speak Mandarin. They don't have their own language. So that is basically why Hui Chinese are better integrated, because they are the same race as the Han Chinese, except that they have a different religion. But I think China operates in a way the same system as we do in the West, because liberalism is really people talk about the liberal order, and this means the idea that liberalism is the umbrella ideology, and everyone is below that, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, all the rest of it, and basically these religions, these people who believe in their particular religion, that they're basically told to be quiet, don't get into arguments, don't start riots and religious wars, because you can go to your places of religious worship, but don't be causing any revolutions. And this is basically how Marxism works in China. Marxism is the umbrella ideology saying, you be Christian, you be Muslim, just don't start a riot and don't start a religious war and you'll be fine. So, just keep it to yourself.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. Although Islam shouldn't cause that problem really, because Islam is about serving your country, serving all of humanity. So technically it shouldn't be a problem, but maybe there's that suspicion or something. And then
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, and I was thinking his line of questioning was a bit weird. This Sneeko is a Muslim. He's like, okay, I love. So you said to this Chinese professor, you say that Christianity is a empire building religion, but it makes no sense. So it's really weird. Like, how can a nonsensical religion be empire building, other than it could be replaced by anything?
Yes. I was going to say, before we interrupted, and I've forgotten why I was going to interject. But on your point about Christianity being an imperial religion, so is Islam, and actually so is Judaism, because when you think about the origins of the Jews were fleeing slaves. They were slaves. They didn't want to be the Pharaoh's slaves, so they came out of Egypt. Canaan was already occupied territory, but they conquered it because they were obeying the laws of God, more or less. And after 40 years, they reached the promised land, and after having conquered it, kind of thing. And well, Christianity is the same thing. If you think of, the Crusades and, why Christianity is the biggest world religion, it's because of the global nature of the Spanish, British, and American Empire.
But like Islam is spread across lots of countries. It's not necessary. It doesn't have to be empire building. It could just be like just your religion, like it is in many countries. Like,
Yeah, I sort of get it that, it should be, we just win the arguments and, get to heaven after choosing the right religion. But I think most people, and Professor Jiang in particular, it just recognizes, power and status. And he doesn't see Muslims as having any kind of status because they are currently, treated as second class or, vaguely suspect. And I've remembered what I was going to say now. I don't know if we've mentioned the mandate of heaven. Have we ever discussed it? It's a Chinese idea.
Oh no, I don't know about it.
So basically, the mandate of heaven is the idea that every Chinese emperor begins his reign with the mandate of heaven, i.e., heaven's approval, but he may lose this mandate if he abuses his power and misgoverns his country. And the signs of this mandate being withdrawn would be natural disaster, pestilence, famine, rebellion, and invasion. So, and then the emperor falls and a new one replaces him, and the next one is again presumed to have the mandate of heaven until, events prove otherwise. So this is a kind of divine right to rule, ancient Chinese style, while, the Christian version is you have the divine right to rule if the Pope agrees with you that you are, behaving like a good Christian king. Because once upon a time, everyone in Europe was Catholic and sought their approval from the Pope in Rome until the Protestant Reformation. But, one of the things Sneeko could have used would be to say, and I do say every time I, bump into any Chinese person, is that the mandate of heaven was a mandate of Allah, wasn't it? If you're, going to talk about, the specifics of this idea of the mandate of heaven. So, and I think Muslims sort of think that, their religion is so logical that if anybody sort of sat down and thought about it, that the whole thing would make sense. Like, well, if God created the universe, he is unimaginably powerful and also merciful, and obviously he cares about humanity whom he created, which is why he sent instructions, first the Torah and second, and finally the Quran. So he obviously cares.
I wouldn't say first for the Torah, but yeah, basically.
Well, I mean, that is preserved. Nobody kind of.
I actually believe the Hindu religions or parts of the Veda are true, but they've been corrupted so much that it's hard to recognize. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is some truth in Hinduism. It's just that, it's all about status again. So Hinduism is the Vedas. It was written by mortal and fallible men, and then somebody got the idea that, well, we're going to get our instructions from God himself, and and then the story of Moses that was that the Jews received the Torah from God through Moses on Mount Sinai, with the Jews below witnessing that had indeed happened. I don't know if you know the story, but that's
I know the story. I'm just clarifying that I think Krishna was a prophet of God. I think Buddha was a prophet of God, but then they were deified like Jesus was deified. So things happen over time. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that God, like God says in the Quran, he's always sent messengers to all people.
Yes, and
It didn't just start with the Jews. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. So I don't know if you talk to people. Sometimes they say, which God are you talking about? And I would say to them, only the Abrahamic God is worth talking about, because this is kind of in harmony with the Shahada. There is no God worthy of worship but Allah. And I I would say, well, if you know of the most powerful God conceivable, why would you waste time worshipping any lesser gods? You'd be wasting your time, and you would be
It wouldn't just be a
illogical.
waste of time, but a lesser god is not really comprehensible. It's just like, okay, who else created the universe? Yeah, okay, so I basically agree with you. Yeah, why would you pray to a
Odin or
a creation of God? You just pray to God.
yes. So
Yeah.
so that's my logic, and so I assume, if you ask the ancient Chinese person who came up with the idea of the mandate of heaven, he would say, well, there's the only God, the most powerful God, because the Chinese philosopher, person talking about who created the idea of the mandate of heaven, if you asked him, he said, yes, the most powerful God. I mean, why would we, logical Chinese people worship, a less powerful God? Because then somebody with the most powerful God will say, well, we win because our God is more powerful. So, we win the argument anyway. So I think, that's the logic of it. And as for the Trinity, well, I think people know that I have a problem with it because it's nonsense, in my view, and also idolatry, because okay, my story about the origins of the Trinity is that Christians came up with their religion, and then they said we worship Jesus because he's the Son of God, and then the Jews would come along and say, whose son is your Jesus? And then the Christians would say, he's the son of the God of Israel, and the Jews would say, who is more powerful, God of Israel or Jesus? And the Christian would get confused, and the Jews would say, well, we win the theological argument. And then, but of course, the Christians thought, well, we're more than you, and we're going to fight you, and we're going to make laws to make it illegal for you to deny the Trinity, and if you do, we're going to burn you at the stake. So that's basically the history of Christianity. And I mean, not only did they do that to Jews, they did it to each other, as well, because they, So yeah. I mean, I think Christianity got so powerful because, on one hand they pretended to be meek and mild, and on the other hand they lied and warred and pillaged and, acquired empire. And because they were, always fighting each other, they got very good at war, and, they were the ones who, have the best weaponry and nuclear bombs and things.
So it wasn't really Christianity itself that made them powerful. There was no wisdom. In fact, even Christian teachings, if you go by Jesus' teachings, it's very hard to run an empire, because like if somebody hits you slaps you on one side, on one cheek, off of the other cheek, you'd never be able to run an empire like that, or invade another country like that. So yeah, I think it's just
the peasants, right? It was for the hoi polloi, the plebs, because I mean, how Christianity worked, I think, was that you pay your taxes, peasant, and shut up. Don't complain about the government. You obey the law of the land, and we'll let you live, and we won't throw you into jail. So this is what you have to do. In the meantime, if you're feeling upset, go to confession, and come to church, and you'll feel better because we'll put on a good show for you. And otherwise, shut up,
Yeah,
and that was how it worked.
yeah.
I mean, if you watch how they're not supposed to ask questions, how they do their rituals. It's a bit of audience participation that kind of keeps people happy. Every now and then, you might be chosen to do a reading. Might start the show if you're having a wedding there, and your name mentioned in sermons or that kind of thing. So it kind of makes it easy to follow, but it makes a ritual very long. I mean, compared to Muslim prayers, you do your prostrations and that's it. Off you go. You might stay a bit to listen to the sermon on Fridays, but it's a very simple ritual.
It is short. It's not particularly long. Yeah.
And also, everybody knows it's like, oh, these are Muslims praying. There was a story, I don't know if we discussed it, but there were these Texans complaining about Muslims, with their weird, brown people rituals, and then somebody said, oh, these people are not Muslims, they are actually Christians, and everybody went, oh, but it's like, it's not really, we don't. It's brown people that we have a problem with, really, It's that kind of idea. Yeah.
What were the main things that he, what's his, I keep forgetting his name, this Chinese professor?
Professor Jiang?
Jiang, yeah. My problem is I can't say Chinese names very well, probably. Yeah, what were his points that you disagreed with anything that stand out?
Yes. So in case the people who don't know, Professor Jiang, takes a great interest in Western history. He went to Yale, and he's kind of doing what I'm doing, except that he does it from a non-Muslim friendly point of view. Well, I think I do the same thing, but somebody was suggesting that Professor Jiang has to be hostile towards Islam because otherwise his channel's going to get nuked. But obviously I don't really know. And he's not advocating for any particular manifesto.
He does comment about Islam, and then when he's corrected, he goes, "I don't know anything about Islam." He's just doing a Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. So when I first heard this interview, it was just so annoying, And so the first thing he said was, "Oh, religion, and it changes over time," and it's like, well, the Torah hasn't changed over time, the Quran hasn't changed over time, and Muslims kind of. I think the ancient Muslims of the time of Muhammad would sort of think, oh yeah, those are those Muslims because they pray in a certain way, and some of them are, might even try to speak Arabic. So, these ancient Muslims might sort of recognise 21st century Muslims. Because it's only Christianity that has changed over time. So he's just saying, the fault of Christianity is the fault of all religions. And, it's obviously untrue, but Sneeko didn't contradict him about it.
He's being, he didn't stand up for Islam properly. I think there's something you might agree with that he agrees with about, he's saying that the Epstein files are being released as a sort of, I'm not sure, was he saying a distraction, or he's got different theories. He's saying it's a way to, this is what he said. He said it's to destroy old power. And the new power is the tech bros. But that doesn't make sense because, like, Elon Musk is going down with it. He's part of, Peter Thiel is going down with the Epstein files. Like, maybe not. I don't know if they're really going down, but they're being accused big time.
I think it's just a distraction.
Bill Gates is going down. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think his ideas really add up. Doesn't go. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a reasonably successful short video featuring somebody going on about the Epstein files, and I'm saying it's a distraction. Even before the Epstein files were released, I think there's enough evidence that our ruling classes are corrupt and incompetent. And then the other thing I said is that these historic sexual offences are notoriously hard to prove. If somebody said, oh, Khalid, 20 years ago you did this terrible thing to me, and you're going to say, well, I've never met you, I don't know who you are, you've got the wrong person, maybe you're mad, or you're trying to blackmail me. If you're famous, I think only famous people get accused of historic sexual offences, don't they?
But I think a lot of... I think people are not just following the Epstein files. I think there's a lot of corroborating evidence that's come from the past and different angles, and that's why people accept them. It might not be enough to put people in jail according to the law, but it will ruin their names, and I think justifiably, because there seems to be a lot of things that are agreeing with each other.
But you're assuming that they're already guilty. And this is a problem, it's like, because we don't like them, we'll just assume they're all guilty. But I'm saying, there's even a verse in the Quran that you have to be fair to your enemies. And the point I was saying is that,
I'm saying that there seems to be evidence adding up.
Okay, well, I don't know. I don't even know what the evidence is, but if somebody actually files a charge, the victim comes forward and says, this and this, a famous celebrity, whatever, she did it to me, and if it ever comes to trial and there is a conviction and there was a fair trial, fine. But I think it's a distraction, and now they're doing it because they hope to, distract us from U.S. foreign policy about to start World War
I don't
III.
think it is distracting from U.S. policy.
Well,
it's
does
just
anybody
saying
care about foreign policy? I don't think they do.
everybody cares about
Yeah,
it.
but they're
And
not going to
okay,
do
let me.
anything about it. I guess
No,
they're
I
just going
think.
to say, oh, Epstein.
No, they're not saying Epstein. What they're saying is that Trump is being controlled by all this stuff, and he's being forced into this Iran war. That's how it comes into foreign policy, and that makes it harder for America to go to war if the whole country is against Trump, and because that's why they had to do 9/11. They had to make the excuse like, oh, it's terrible, we're under threat. If they didn't care about people's opinions, they wouldn't bother with 9/11, right? We both agree 9/11 is an inside job, right? Or don't you?
Well, I don't. I think, it does look like a controlled demolition.
Okay. So, but a lot of people would agree that it's an inside job, and it was just designed so that Americans would be scared and ready to
hate
fight.
Muslims and want to invade all those Muslim
Yeah,
countries.
invade loads of countries, including Iraq and whoever, Afghanistan, whatever, all that kind of stuff. So, So, what my argument is that they're willing to destroy the Twin Towers so that they can go to war because they care about public opinion, and public opinion is going really against Trump. I'm not saying it'll be enough to stop Trump, but it doesn't help Trump, and it doesn't help the war machine. I don't think it's just a distraction. It's actually really bad for the war machine of America.
Well, I don't know. You can just start the war and say, oh, well, it started. You have to support me now because it started. And if you support me, China and Russia are going to come and get us. Because that's a lot of Americans do believe in that. They hate Russia because, and British people, they hate Russia. And the thing is, Russia has never, ever invaded any country. They did invade Germany, but that was after Germany invaded them. But,
I find it hard to judge. Do people really hate Russia, considering there's lots of Russians who live in London?
Russia, if you remember him.
Yeah.
To the extent that, he says he cares about white people, and it's like, well, if you care about white people, you shouldn't be, going rah, 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 let's keep fighting the Russians, because it's white people fighting, other white people and killing other white people and reducing the number of white
Is
people.
SJJ really representative? I don't know. The reason why I doubt it is because if you know any Russians, you're not likely. I know Russians. Basically, London's full of people from everywhere. Maybe I've got the wrong perspective because I'm an ex-Londoner, and Londoners really have a problem hating people from other countries because we know people from all other countries. Do you know what I mean? And you stop being able to hate them because the propaganda just falls apart when you know somebody from that country. I do have trouble. Maybe it's a London bias to believe that we hate people from other countries. It's just
that's the thing. You say we, and who is we? People,
we Londoners.
Maybe a different kind of people to the people who just instinctively hate Russia, because they watch all the James Bond.
What gives you the idea? Is it just SJJ? Is that your sort of your sample of people who hate Russians?
Well, I I know quite a few people. I mean, one of the things he's quite proud of is like, well, the people I know hate the war in Ukraine. But I mean, I'm just, saying some people, I mean, definitely SJJ supports a war in Ukraine. And he can't give coherent reasons about, why he should support it. And some people suggested that, he's listening to somebody called Wyvern, who's actually, in Ukraine. I don't know. Maybe young men just like fighting. Maybe they just like hating so they can fight.
I think there's a general distrust of the government, and less people want to fight. And the only reason why they would fight is because they're so poor. It's usually poor people who go into armies.
Join the army just to get fed and have a career structure.
Exactly. Or I'm not sure if this is worse, but some of the army adverts try to make life in the army really cool. It's like, oh, we were just messing around, sort of thing. I don't know if you've seen those adverts.
And the women. Ooh, you might get,
exactly.
It's disgusting. But anyway, I said that, there are, the phenomenon of football hooliganism is basically young men who are aggressive, whose, energy should be better directed into something better than football hooliganism, but left to themselves, I guess, men like fighting. They like joining gangs and they like fighting each other because it's fun. And that's
but do they like fighting for a government? I don't
think they do, and also the fear is that they might be conscripted, and this time women might be conscripted too.
Do you think conscription would work in the UK? Do you think conscription would work in the UK?
Well, we don't know. We don't know what crazy thing. I mean, lots of things don't work in the UK, but they just pushed it through, right? And then they still won't revise it. I think that. I can't decide whether they're stupid or mad or evil. I just don't know. But it doesn't matter because
who's the they? The average population, or
our government?
I mean, I think it's coming through that they're pretty evil, just generally speaking. There's one or two that are not, maybe. But yeah, I think that would be the general feeling, especially with these the Epstein files. Like, just I don't want to call it the icing on the cake, but just really push the narrative that these government leaders are insane and evil and
yes, but I'm saying that there has already been sufficient evidence before the Epstein files were released out.
Yeah, and then this is just more evidence, but yeah.
Yeah, but and instead of us asking, why is the stupid government, fighting a war with Russia, and instead of being on good friendly terms with Russia and getting cheap energy and keeping our manufacturing base, such as what is left of it, going, but we pay I think 3 times more for energy and we're being deindustrialized, so we'll just become a basket case of criminals and drug dealers and whatever. So obviously our ruling classes are not doing anything that's in the national interest, but why are European men just so helpless? I mean, you would have thought they could make a few arguments and say maybe the system is wrong, and without actually accusing people. And as I said, as a lawyer, I'm just saying. Cases of historic sexual offences are notoriously hard to prove. I mean, even rape is hard to prove because somebody has to say, "Oh yes, I mean, there were no witnesses, so it's always one person's word against another." And in the olden days, if a woman just complained that a man raped her and has no evidence or DNA or witnesses or whatever, she would be told to forget about it because. Otherwise,
I mean, there is all sorts of evidence, but I'm not sure to what extent it's publicly available.
And we're not going to read it, and the only way to understand
we're not going to read it. Who's not going to read it?
I don't know how many reams of documents, and it's all redacted, so you can't make any sense of it. So I'm saying, unless somebody accuses someone and it comes to court. And there was a fair trial, and somebody gets convicted. It's a pile of nothing. in my view, and that's how I propose to treat it. Because otherwise, we'll get. I think we've spent more than half this stream talking about Epstein. And this
Okay,
is
let's.
the whole
Shall we
idea
jump to a
of
random
what they're
point?
doing. The
Should we jump
wasting
to a
our
random?
time.
Should we jump to a random point of the video and then see if we agree or disagree with
Well,
a point?
actually, I've written down a list of the things that I eat as
Oh, okay, go for it. Yeah,
So,
go on. What else has he talked about?
yeah, so he said religion changes over time, and I said, well, Christianity is a religion that changes over time. Not Judaism and not Islam, even
Yeah.
though the way.
What's another point? What's another point? Because we agree that religion hasn't really changed over time.
And then the most ridiculous thing he said is, it causes people to be conformists. It's that's the whole point of religion, because it is a system of belief. So you have to say you believe in Allah or whatever to say you are part of this religion. And then you have to.
And it's not a religion just that says just conform. It says conform for your own benefit. Like, what isn't listening to the laws of the government conformism? Like, it's just a general word.
Obeying the law and being a good citizen.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. So it's just putting a negative slant on an actually beneficial thing for society.
I mean, because that's the whole purpose of organised religion. It's like, we are the people who, believe in this and we do that and we never do this and, that kind of idea. So people know how to behave with each other within the group.
That's society. I mean, that's civilization, isn't it? That you are organized. Like they say, organized religion as if it's a bad word or something. It's organized. Oh my God, organized. Like, what's wrong with an organized company? Or like, if you had a disorganized company, that would be a bad thing.
Yeah, and the whole thing is like, it's these liberals who say, oh, how dare anybody tell me what to believe? But then these liberals can never agree with each other about anything. And liberalism is their real religion. And of course, you kind of need to say, well, if you want to be a Muslim, you have to believe in God. And do the things that Muslims do, and if you won't do them, then you'll be lowered in status as a not practicing Muslim, a cultural Muslim, and the imams and the people who do it properly will be the top Muslims. It's that sort of idea. Otherwise, you don't want to be like, to be like Christianity. Anybody can come in and say all kinds of, ridiculous things about Christianity, and nobody dares to contradict them because it's so desperate for numbers that they'll, as long as you're happy to identify as Christian, you'll be considered Christian, so they can say, we're still the biggest religious group in the whole wide world. Because that's kind of their game. Because they never exclude anyone now, do they? They're just happy that you want to be Catholic or Anglican or whatever it is. But now they argue amongst themselves about how far should we go about diluting our principles. And then, of course, the problem is, if you say, oh, you're going to go to hell for doing this and that and the other, then nobody will come to your church. So they think, well, we have to keep our church going, so we have to, be cool with gay marriage and fornication and blah, blah, blah. And then, they confuse themselves because, are you a social club? Or are you there to maintain morality?
And it doesn't really, you don't really feel like you, I think, like the whole point of religion is to give you guidance, and if the guidance is you can do anything you want, then you don't really feel good or guided, and then people just leave. It's like this religion is saying do anything you want every day. What's the point of that? And then they'll leave, and that's the problem with watering down your religion. You get rid of the guidance. It's really short-term thinking, and it's not working.
What you said made me think of political parties. It's like, obviously if you want change, you should be in a political party. But, I joined political parties when it was actually, you don't talk about, political ideologies and political principles. You just do whatever you're told by the leadership, to go leafleting, to, go to meetings. You're not supposed to argue about the coherence of, whatever you're supposed to be doing. So, everybody kind of gets like that, let's not argue with each other about, whether, Muslims should do this or Marxists should do that, just don't argue, just be.
Well, that would be a weak political party, but a political party where they really believe in it, that gets, a lot of support without having to advertise and things like that. People just go, I agree with that guy. I'm going to vote for that guy. Makes it easier, especially if it makes sense. If you say nonsensical things, it's hard to vote for you. So that's the problem with Christianity. It's just generally nonsensical. I don't want to say it just like that. Christianity of modern today is nonsensical. There's a lot of wisdom in the Bible, but very few Christians, I think, follow the Bible
or even read it. And then, if you ask a Catholic, they say, we don't follow it. I mean, because actually there's nothing to follow. If you read the New Testament, I mean, there's nothing, from it that says anything.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So that's what I'm trying to do with the Catholics I'm talking to. I'm trying to get them to, I want leaders like E. Michael Jones to say, you should be following these rules. And if that message gets out, that would be good for humanity. Be nice to each other, be respectful. And I think there's a really interesting. Have you heard of have you listened to Mamdani talk about referencing different scriptures?
No.
Yeah, he's been talking about, for example, he talks about the Bible saying, the Bible says take care of the strangers and the whatever, people who are just visiting your country. And Islam talks about that as well, by the way. So, I think if people come back to following clear sets of guidance, they'll really benefit. Right now, they're just following liberal freedom, which is don't follow any rules, which doesn't really make any sense.
Well, yes, and the thing that frustrates me is that, it's so easy for Muslims to say there are no clear principles in the New Testament, which is written by, more than one author, and if you ask them how many authors wrote the New Testament, the answer seems to be 8 to 10, and some of them are not even known. So how can you believe in, so we don't even know who wrote this thing, but we follow it?
Yeah, I'm not. What I say is that if you're racist or whatever it is, or you're just scared of foreigners and foreign ideas, then I would say, you know what? There is a lot of useful things in the Bible that you can follow. Be nice to people, be respectful, listen to your husband. Go to the Old Testament. Fear God is actually really useful. The love of money is the root of all wisdom. That's a really useful idea.
I think you need to say.
Oh, I was actually mixing up two sayings. Actually, that's why. Yeah, I was thinking of the fear of God is the root of all wisdom, and another one, which is the love of money is the root of all evil. Yeah, sorry, I mixed the two up. But yeah, so there's so many useful teachings. I wouldn't say it's completely I couldn't follow it myself because there's contradictions, like you say, and there's also smash the head. What was it? Smash the heads of children, and there's the Amalek idea, which is the Old Testament, whatever.
That's for Jews, you see. I mean, the whole point
but they still have this book that they take to church is the problem. So, but yeah, and then you say half the book is irrelevant and outdated. So why do you have the book? So there are those problems. But as I say, if you're racist or you just
they
can't...
want to use Christianity to be racist. That's why you have Christian nationalism, which is, upgraded white nationalism. So...
Would you agree, though, that there are good things in the Bible,
sure,
but it's hard to follow because... it's hard to follow because of all the contradictions. Maybe.
But I mean, really, your identity of a group is basically, let's say we're pirates and we want to be pirates. It's like then we say we are a gang of pirates and we go around, raiding other people's ships, and we might do a big bit of raiding and pillaging, but we have to be respectful of each other's boundaries and share our booty fairly, or we will start killing each other. At that criminal level, there is the reason for the existence of the group, because we exist in order to be pirates and we share our loot fairly, and that's why we are such a gang of successful pirates. And this is basically the building blocks of religion. But these Christians, they don't know what their rules are. They can't agree about
rules,
what it is they're supposed to believe. But they are a big group of people, but that's because that they have been quite good at acquiring empire. But now I think they are in danger of starting another world war. And if you get distracted and talk about Epstein when we should be talking theology and actually saying, well, what is it that you believe? And then they'll be give you some nonsensical answer. And Professor Jiang is basically repeating their nonsense because he thinks he's smarter than Muslims. Right? Or he's afraid to be seen to be agreeing with Muslims. Because the great thing about Sharia is that, it's just saying, well, you believe in God, don't you? And if you say yes, it's like, oh, you mean the Abrahamic God who revealed the Torah and later revealed the Quran? And, if you really believe in him, in heaven and hell, where you will go after you are dead, then you better be obeying his laws, right? How can they say no?
Yeah.
So you've already backed them into a corner. So you can say, well, and the usefulness of the Ten Commandments is that Muslims are not going to disagree with the Ten Commandments that Jews received, and Christians have basically incorporated them, the commandments into their religion, and the first one is, thou shalt worship no other gods. Right? And it means no idolatry. So at least we can just concentrate on this one thing, which is, quite easy for a very easy argument for Muslims to win. And, my thing is that you can actually demonstrate that idolatry is a bad thing, even if God doesn't exist to punish you, because if you're an idolater, it means you deprive yourself of the opportunity of being rightly guided by the Quran. Because you think you know better. You prefer to make up the rules as you go along. Even though you keep crashing and burning and falling and tripping, you still want to, maybe a lot of them are just happy enough, like, well, it's the Jews that made us fall over and crash and burn, and they're still around, and we hate them.
I mean, I do see your point in the sense that the Epstein part, if you over-concentrate on the Epstein files and not focus on solutions, then it is just a distraction. I think it depends on the person, and there is always these people who just complain and they don't actually solve anything. But I think, did you know, for example, loads more people are becoming Muslim since the Gaza war, because they're looking at it and they're going, oh, why are they the enemy? Oh, usually the enemy is, enemy of our leaders is probably a good person, or so there's something right that they're doing, that they're the enemy. Do you know that even the Epstein Islands got like a Kaaba-looking temple in the middle of it, and mosque, at least a mosque-looking temple, and Epstein's been trying to acquire different materials from the Kaaba. Do you know about that?
No, I don't. But I suppose, I guess he intends to invite a few Muslims there.
No, he doesn't intend to invite Muslims, although there's one or two weird ones that are kind of listening to him. My understanding is he sort of believes in a sort of black magic where he knows his enemy are the Muslims, basically. They're the only people that are really going to stand up to him at the end. And so it's kind of like, he focuses on his enemy, and the Kaaba is that sense of that, I guess the symbol of Islam, but also the symbol of Islamic unity, something like that. I don't know, but it looks very much like a Muslim. At least it looks like a mosque. And I think,
Perhaps you sent me that picture. I really haven't been following it. I guess I'm
oh,
deliberately
okay,
ignoring it because it's like
yeah,
I'm sure there won't even be a single legal action brought that will come to that will get a
sure.
conviction,
Well, I
and
think
we're
it's not going
talking
to
about
have.
nothing.
It's not talking about nothing because it is going to have an effect. People are going to have their opinions. They so whether legally something happened or not, I think it's going to have an effect. Like for example, what has legally happened against the Zionists? Nothing. But loads of people have become Muslims, and the you know public opinion is massively shifting. Blah blah blah. Mamdani, I think part of the reason why Mamdani is the New York mayor is because of his stand against Zionism. So things are to say nothing is happening is not really talking about the facts. We've got to stick with the facts at least.
Well, I guess. Well, I think Mom Downey would have been elected even without the Epstein files. So that's a
No, I
a
mean,
different thing.
yes,
But yes,
no, it's not the Epstein files. I'm saying the Gaza war helped him a lot. There's one of those videos that, like, one of the videos. I don't. You must have watched one of these like videos that got him loads of attention. There was like, they had all the potential mayors lined up, and they said, "What are you going to do if you become mayor?" You're just going to be like, "Oh, I'm going to go to Israel and pay homage there." It's like all of them except for Mamdani said, He just said, "I'm going to stay in New York," which a sensible mayor would have said. Do you know what I mean? So all these things helped him become mayor.
well, but also, Jews don't want to be associated with Israel.
Yeah,
That's why.
yeah,
What if
loads
you're
of very sensible Jews. Yeah, yeah.
I'm non-Zionist, which is what David has said. You know,
Hmm.
so because it used to be considered the same thing. If you're a Jew, definitely you're a Zionist.
And a lot of people who were Zionists are outspoken against Zionism now. There's loads of really big figures. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm saying it's all to do with American foreign policy, and this is what we need to concentrate on understanding. But I know a lot of people don't even understand their own history, and they certainly can't be bothered to understand the complicated histories of foreign countries they wouldn't dream of visiting. But shall we just continue to go through what?
Sure. And we haven't got too much time, but shall we just jump to a bit and I'll try to stay a little bit longer, but always got something.
I mean, I think he's going to go on about the Trinity, and we
Oh,
already.
do you want to jump to on you because you said
No,
you
I
made
was just
loads of
going to
notes.
go through my list that I've written about.
Oh yeah, go through your
specifics
list.
of
Yeah,
the,
yeah, sure. Yeah. So another point?
So he was going to. He was saying he wants to connect to God directly, and I think that's another non-point, because I'm sure Muslims think they do connect to God directly every time they pray. So
Yeah.
and Sneaker just let it go. And then the next thing he said was, "I want to feel God in your heart." It's like, well, I'm sure a lot of Muslims think they feel God in their heart, and
Right.
and then
But even as Muslims, we invite people, we say, if you're not sure about Islam, ask God, and we think God will guide you to Islam. And if he doesn't, then okay, that's between you and God. So we don't have a problem with that. So but like, it's dishonest, I think. It's like, if somebody is helping you find God, what's the problem with that? And when in Islam, there's no compulsion in religion. So it's not like you have to go through another Muslim to reach God. You just, as you say, you just talk to God. So in so many ways, it's not very honest. And he keeps saying every time he says something against religion, he goes, "I just don't know much about it." He's just doing a Jordan Peterson where at some point people are just going to mock him. Like in the beginning of the stream, I forgot what he said of their stream, Sneakers. He says, "Oh, what do you mean by this? What's the definition of this?" Like that's a classic Jordan Peterson that really buried him at the end. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Do you remember the last? I think this could be the last appearance that Jordan Peterson had. He's like, "What's the definition of like? I don't know what you mean by that." Everybody just had enough of it. Do you know that
and
thing
now
where
he's sick
he's not
again,
atheist?
so he's out of action.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think he's just have a nervous breakdown trying to lie all the time and breaking his own rules. Yeah.
and probably suffering, depression as a result
Well, I
of,
mean, his
the lies
daughter
he
said that
tells.
he's suffering from spiritual something. Like he basically said, like his own daughter basically said he's suffering from being a bad person, essentially, some spiritual
Really?
ailment.
What did she say?
He's suffering from something, from spiritual pain of some sort, which is essentially saying you've done bad things. So I could get that clip, but it's just
Yes. Perhaps we can
yeah.
talk about it next time. So all his points, his reasons for rejecting Islam, is. Well, I mean, they're not even good reasons that make sense. And then he says, I prefer to use my imagination and intuition to reach God, which is like, yeah, but you could be part of a religion if and then he started talking about it's too simple, it's too clear, and then.
Yeah, I remember. I think there was another video. Did he say
But
this
that's
one?
a good thing, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
And then he started going on about Sabbatai and Francis. I don't know if you've heard
Why
of
do
it.
people listen to him? Because I only listened to him a little bit because he made one good prediction in one video, but then if after that it doesn't. It's just lots of theories and he
And
just
vague
starts.
words. Right.
Yeah, okay. So he was saying, okay, so some facts come up, and then he has a theory, but you can't really support the theory. And you can actually dismantle a lot of his theories. But one of the things he brought up was that cryptocurrency was. I mean, it's coming out in the Epstein files that Epstein was behind crypto, which easily possible because a lot of criminals use it to hide money. But then, like, okay, so what? You said it now, but did you say it before the Epstein files came out? Did you say like, and what's the result of your theory? Do you know what I mean? Nothing. So I would say that his popularity came out of one video, and then he's never said anything of consequence, meaning he doesn't have a theory that results in any action you can take, or any theory that can be proved, or he's just agreeing with stuff that's already been proven, so mostly been proven. So, I mean, what's your theory? Why do people listen to him?
Well, I think Westerners like him because he's talking about them. He's giving Westerners his interpretation of the history of the West. So if you go through his videos, this is what he talks about. And since he speaks reasonably good English and went to Yale and has some understanding of how Westerners think, that's why I think we if there was a video of us about us, even if they were slagging us off, we would be rushing to watch it, right? It doesn't even matter if it says nice things or bad things, because we're interested
I mean,
in
I
what
don't
people
read
think of
color,
us.
but yeah.
And so I think he's just giving the standard Western reason, because it's like, oh, I need a bit more evidence that Islam is the right religion, that kind of thing. And it seems that the white man with his anti-Islam bias is still in charge. So I'm not going to be sticking my neck out and supporting some minority religion.
Yeah.
And then he started talking about reincarnation, and it was all just vague stuff like that. How do you know? How do you know we're reincarnated? It just means you'd like to believe, and I know it's kind of what Hindus and Buddhists believe in, but also what Orthodox Jews believe in.
Yeah, I think he's gonna fall out of popularity because I think, yeah, it was just that one video, and then he just does spew out facts. And yes, now we've heard that he was at Yale, and people might think that's a good thing. But even there's loads of facts coming out against Yale and Harvard as institutions, as basically they're being seen as institutions for the rich to get together and be criminals. So, and where the rich grow up to learn to be criminals. I don't know if
Yes.
you've seen videos about like how it was very common for women to be their drinks to be spiked and then raped, and there were actually orgies at Harvard, and it was a normal thing, and nobody did anything about it. And if you complained about being raped, you'd be thrown out of school. So, yeah,
Yeah,
fully,
and
yeah,
initiation rites in their fraternities. So,
yeah,
I think he's talking about the Sabbatean Frankists, and this is a term that anti-Semites like to keep bringing up. It's like, because I think they were Jewish and they wanted to go against the Torah to, I don't know, make the Messiah come sooner, or something weird like that, I don't know. But Sabbatean Frankists is associated with, bad Jews doing satanic things, and apparently in Yale, there's an elite club called the Skull and Bones Club. I think
yeah,
I might have got the name slightly wrong.
yeah. President Bush and
Yeah,
etc. has been part of it.
and
Yeah.
only the best people can join, and part of the initiation ritual is you have to think of your, kinkier sex fantasy and tell the group. And then I guess they'll use it against you. The CIA will use it against you and entrap you, and yeah. So when you're powerful, they'll keep using it to blackmail you. I guess that would be how I guess I would run the CIA if I were running it. If I were, evil.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's basically saying, being too simple and too clear would not work against the Sabbatean Frankists. But I don't know. Do you want to play out the rest of it, or if you have time?
Play out the rest of the
rest
video.
of the video, just for the sake of completeness. It's only a few more minutes.
Oh, really? It's a long. I thought you were playing the whole stream.
It's,
Sorry. This is a clip, is
halfway
it?
through.
Okay. Okay, go for it. Yeah, go on. I thought
Or
it was
just I guess.
oh, it's not 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to jump to the middle and we'll make one comment on one? It's good to hear him rather than your. I mean, it's good that you summarize some things. Okay, go on. Let's hear a little bit more, and then we'll.
Sounds right, because it connects with us, right? But the entire point of the
Oh dear, I don't know what's happening. Sorry.
of the Holy Trinity, okay, an idea that three things can be separate but connected. Three things that are different from each other can be at
I mean,
one
he's
at the same
explaining
time.
that the Trinity doesn't make sense. And
It's
nobody
meant
thinks that it makes
to
sense anyway.
confuse
skip
you.
past that.
It's meant to create cognitive dissonance. And when you accept the idea of the Trinity, the idea is that now you open your portal to all sorts of whatever crap propaganda that they want to instill in you as well. And that's why the Holy Trinity is the very basis of the Catholic religion.
Mm-hmm. And remember, the weakness you said about Islam was that it was too simple and clear.
The Trinity is purposely, the Trinity is purposely nonsensical, so that once you accept one nonsensical thing, you can accept anything. Do you think that's by purpose?
Well, I actually know somebody who said, well, if all I have to say is I accept the Trinity to be a member of a very powerful group, then I would do it without hesitation. I know somebody who said it, and he's a friend.
I mean, yeah, so there's going to be all sorts of people who do that. Yeah. But it's no longer a powerful organized. Is it really? It's not really. It's increasingly weak because it makes no sense. So I don't think his logic doesn't really stand very well.
Yeah, he's saying it's incremental. If you accept one lie, you'll probably accept another and another and another. Right? I mean.
Okay, sure. I agree that works, but I don't agree that's a way to have a long-standing empire.
Yeah,
I mean, the Roman Empire was
already
really strong.
You need people to actually believe in your religion, because otherwise they won't do what you hope they will do, which is stand up for truth and defend the territory and or marry and have children and be good parents. which is too
Exactly.
hard
So the
work for most people these days.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not really a yeah. I don't. His idea is a bit weird. Yes, I get that. If you accept one silly idea without argument, you're able to accept all sorts of other silly ideas. But that doesn't mean it's actually useful to do that. Because as you say, you've got to actually believe this stuff to be able to follow it. So yeah, okay. So in short, he's I think he is generally nonsensical. He's got some ideas. He puts facts in them, but if you think about his ideas, they fall apart really quickly. And he just got maybe a little bit lucky, or because he made thousands of videos, and one video actually proved to be correct, which is his prediction on the first strike on Iran. Yeah, nothing really. I think he's going to go out of fashion soon.
Shall I continue?
Oh no, I've got to go. There's so many things to do, but appreciate being on your channel, and hopefully catch you next week.
All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Take it. Bye.
Okay, bye. I will play the rest of it out for people who might be interested.
Like that really it struck me, because it's like, that doesn't sound like a weakness. That sounds like if I'm in a job interview, they'd be like, "What are your weaknesses?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm too direct. I'm too simple, and I work too hard." Right. So why would you consider that a weakness?
Well, because we talk to the Frankists. What the Frankists will say is that this is a world of Satan. And so to really rule the world, to really conquer the world, you need to embrace the demonic. You need to be multifaceted. You need to have multiple personalities. You have to, like what you are in the outside has to be different from what you are in the inside. You have to practice depravity. You have to practice manipulation, right? So if you're too simple, you're too direct, that limits your maneuverability in politics.
Okay. So it's a weakness because people will take advantage of, because being Islam it's all about submission to God. So that in terms of empire, it's a weakness in this world.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
What's what do you disagree at all? I mean, basically, why would you not consider yourself a Muslim?
So I have issues with the Islamic faith, okay? My major issue is that, I got a lot of hate for my lecture, okay? But I believe that organized religion, it changes over time. So maybe in the beginning, it had certain ideas. But in order to accommodate empire, in order to accommodate politics, it shifted over time to become much more conformist, but become much more static. And I don't like that, okay? I mean, I mean, my sympathies are toward the connection with God directly, right? So rather have an intermediary telling you what God thinks, well, you should be able to feel God in your heart, okay? And I mean, like, people have said I'm a Gnostic, or I'm a Luciferian. I don't know what these terms mean, okay? But I believe that we're all individuals with the divine spark in us. And so we should be all able to connect directly to God. And we should all be able to exercise our imagination, our intuition.
So the disagreement is the divinity within? Because in Islam, it's like we don't believe God is within. It's that we worship God because He's divine. Okay, so you think there's divine spark within us?
That's right.
Okay. Is that not, isn't that similar? Not exactly, but isn't that a lot what the Frankists believe? That's why they sin. That's why they do things, because, sinning is where you get divine power, that's what they believe.
Right. So the Frankists believe that if we're in this world, we should conquer this world and enjoy the pleasures of this world. Okay. So they believe in longevity. They believe in transhumanism. Okay. And this explains why things are happening the way they are. These billionaires, what are they obsessed with? They're obsessed with living forever, right? Mm-hmm. Transhumanism. And that's a very Frankist mentality. Mm-hmm. I, on the other hand, believe that our souls are immortal. And this world is just one of many worlds. And we come to this world in order to experience things that we couldn't experience in the in the astral plane, okay? Because in the astral plane, you're pure force, you're pure energy, right? You can't actually feel pain. You can't have sex. You can't eat any food. So we're here to have these rare, unique experiences that make us more enlightened. And we're here also to bring comfort, to bring enlightenment, to bring joy to others as well, because that's what makes us really happy, our connections with others. So there are things that we cannot experience elsewhere that we can experience here, and so we should make the most of our opportunities while we're here. But at the same time, as these immortal divine souls, we're constantly in the process of seeking enlightenment. And the problem is that if you make a mistake, okay, if you choose a path that is wrong, okay, for example, you choose to be Jeffrey Epstein, right? Well, there has to be a fail-safe mechanism in order to steer you into the right direction. And this fail-safe mechanism is death. Death is release. Death is catharsis, right? Death is an escape from this hell that we live in. But don't worry because your soul won't die, and eventually you'll come back to this world to live a better life based on the mistakes you made in this life, right? So the Frankists want to live forever because they cannot countenance the possibility that they'll go back in the astral plane and discover all the evil that they've done. Okay, so they want to avoid this possibility. Yeah. Right. Whereas I think a true human is to appreciate that the universe is a journey. Life is a journey towards enlightenment, which is to be closer to God. And this is what all religious traditions teach, by the way.
Okay. So where do you think that we go when we die?
I think that we're composed of different elements. Okay, so I think consciousness is multidimensional, or infinite in its dimensions. And so there's a part of us that's a soul, but then there's parts of us as well that dissipates into the ether. Okay, so it's very complicated. I can't really describe it using language, but it's like we are here and we are forever. Okay, we're now, but we're also eternal. Mm-hmm. And so, when we die, there's part of us that goes back to the astral plane, but then there's also a part of us that seeps into others as well, like memories, right? We live on as memories in others. And so I think the point of our existence is to create, is to make ourselves memorable in the minds of others, right? And so that's what drives me. Okay, so one way to do that, of course, is to have children, and to raise your children and to be happy and healthy. Another way of doing that is to be kind and generous to others, so that you impact their lives in a positive manner. And another way of doing that is through teaching, which is what I do online. And this is why I'm talking to you, because you have an audience, you have a huge audience that I don't actually interact with. I deal with an older audience. And like for you, I'm able to spread my message to others and leave an imprint on others that may impact their lives for the better. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really the purpose of life.
But that's the difference between a Frankist and someone like you, because it seems like you want to put out good, and we appreciate your work greatly. But so many people, there was, I'm sure Andrew Tate, he made the argument that Epstein was a successful man because Epstein is memorable, and people have immortalized him within memes if he's actually dead. And he made his mark, and people know who he is. The difference between your belief and somebody like Tate, when he's saying Epstein is a success, is that you want to be remembered through good things, right? If you want to just be remembered on its own, then you can start a pedophile island and blackmail people for Israel. But that's not going to.
That takes skill. Let's give him some credit, okay? That takes some talent to pull off. Like to deal with Bill Clinton and Bill Gates at the same time.
He was good at what he did, undeniably. But would you consider Epstein a successful man because he's immortalized and he's going to be remembered?
That's a really good question. I think Andrew Tate is right. I think he is successful in that he will become forever. He'll be a historical figure because like 100 years from now we'll still be talking about Jeffrey Epstein. So yeah, and that's a very Frankist mentality. Like it's not about living a good life; it's living a memorable life. right? But I'm trying to provide an alternative where, you know what, wouldn't it be better to be remembered for like good things because then because that will inspire people to good, right? I mean, Jeffrey Epstein is going to inspire people to evil, whereas I'm going to inspire people to good. But you know, like that's a very important idea in religion where where it's a law of symmetry or polarity, where you know if someone like Jeffrey Epstein, who's pure evil exists, then someone who's pure good will exist as well. So good must exist alongside evil. So I mean, like the fundamental law of the universe is free will, free choice. If Jeffrey Epstein chooses to be evil, and we can't blame him for that, okay? Because it's his choice. But we can also choose to be good, and that's a challenge before us. When there are these evil role models, you have to choose to be the light of this world, and that's what makes this life so interesting, and that's what makes your choice memorable, because you're able to do the thing that goes against convention, whether it's doing tremendous evil or it's doing tremendous good. It goes against convention both ways, right?
Mm-hmm. So why do you choose, if you said that being remembered as a metric of success, why do you choose to do good and not evil?
Because I can't sleep at night if I do evil. You know, it's that simple. I mean, like, you know, I went to Yale, and you know, at Yale they teach you to be Frankist, right? I'm like, I'm sorry, but you know, these Ivy League are all like MK Ultra indoctrination machines. But I couldn't sleep at night if I knew in my heart that I brought some evil in this world. So, you know, I think that our consciousness is all infinite. We're always communicating with the past, the future, with the here and the now, but also the infinite and the eternal. And it's really what you choose to focus on. And in my mind, it's focused on certain things. I'm opening myself up to consciousness. And I want to be able to sleep well at night, okay? And then you look at Jeffrey Epstein and how he's able to do what he did. And the reason why is he can't sleep at night. So he has to engage in drugs. He has to engage in all this evil in order to move on with his life. Because once you embrace the demonic, then you are trapped, okay, by the demonic. Then you have to fully embrace the demonic, and you have to like worship it in order to basically live on.
All right, so Epstein is serving demonic entities, and doing good is serving God, correct?
That's a metaphorical way of putting it, yes. But I think what's really important is that God is not judgmental, okay? God has given us free will, and we can do whatever we want. And God will never punish us for our evil. God won't reward us for our good. It's because we ourselves seek enlightenment. It's because we ourselves seek to feel better about ourselves that we commit to good.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think is keeping you up at night if you do something wrong? I'm sure everybody can relate to this watching this, right? If you're rude to a friend, or say you get emotional in a class and you lash out at Amber because she's reading slow or something, what is the reason why you kept up? Like, so what is that thought keeping you awake?
Empathy, right? Empathy, because like when you shout at someone and then you go away, you're able to remember what you did, but you're able to switch perspective and see how that person feels being shouted at, because you yourself were shouted at, right? And the question is like, where does empathy come from? And I think empathy just comes from wisdom. It comes from living many lives and having different perspectives. You know, so for me, I just read a lot. As a young person, I was an alienated individual. I was an immigrant in Toronto. I was bullied a lot. And so I just read a lot. When you read a lot, you develop empathy.
Mm-hmm. Depends on what you read. You could read sex magic books like Epstein, or read, you know, he had a book, next to the Talmud that said, sure you've seen this, right? He had books about Kabbalah, sex magic, and stuff. If you read the wrong literature, I'm sure you could also be...
Well, I mean, like, the public libraries don't have these books, right? So I stuck with, you know, like literature and science fiction and fantasy.
Okay. Yeah, and I really liked your lecture about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and you said you've read a lot of books about parenting and trying to find the right styles and the right ways to raise your children. What sort of mistakes do you think people are making in raising their children?
I think the biggest mistake is to believe that your child is a blank slate. Because that's what I believed when I first had kids. And so what I believe that is that, if I build good habits, if I present myself as a good role model, if I steer my kids to the right activities, then my kid will be better and better. And what I didn't recognize is that every child is an independent person capable of all agency from the first day. And every child wants to be respected. Every child wants to be independent. Every child wants to pick his or her path. And that's the only way to enlightenment, okay? If the child is allowed to be himself or herself and make his own mistakes. I have 3 kids and they're all different personalities. And I wanted, I have a certain idea in my head of what I wanted my kids to be. And then the harder I try, the more frustrated I get because my kids refuse to obey me. And so over these past few years, the greatest lesson that I've taught my kids is to respect the freedom of each individual, to be non-judgmental, to appreciate my child for himself or herself. And I really think that's the greatest mistake that parents make.
Kind of like the Islamic rule, like allow tolerance of other faiths and religion, let people.
I will tell you this, okay? I will tell you this. I've been to Saudi Arabia, I've been to Afghanistan, I've been to quite a few Islamic countries, and it surprised me how happy the kids are, okay? I mean, if you go to Islamic countries, the kids are a lot happier, a lot healthier, a lot more emotionally regulated than Western kids.
Mm-hmm. And you said that I saw your video about growing up in Toronto and getting bullied, and obviously I can relate. I mean, I probably don't look as Asian now, but I grew up super, I got some of the same things, and so did my mother. And so when you were alienated and reading these books, what was the most transformative literature that you found?
When I was young,
I can tell you in a few words what Jiang said. He read the science fiction novels of Isaac Asimov, and he read Marvel Comics, X-Men being one of them. So I will now complete the stream. I hope you managed to get something out of it. And yes, I hope it's the discussion has been useful. So thank you for coming by.